welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another speed build. We're in the world of Brindleton Bay on perhaps one of my favourite ever lots, which is the Bedlington Boathouse, a 20 by 20 lot that's very snug, very cosy, and has insane views of the Brindleton Bay area. I wanted to create a autumnal inspired Cape Cod cottage that will be a holiday rental for your Sims when they want to go to the coast during this part of the year. Now, as you can see, I've changed my game to autumn and absolutely obsessed with all the colours of the trees and the surrounding area. Such a pretty world to live in with autumn. And it was a real challenge initially figuring out the color scheme for this kind of house because I'm not used to building in such an Americana style aesthetic. And after a bit of research, I came across lots of builds that had this dark wood siding with some really clean white accents in contrast. And it was a real nice challenge actually. I ended up using completely different color schemes than I'm used to, objects that I never really gravitate towards. So it was a nice learning curve for me, let's put it that way. Now, I wanted to make use of the glass panes that came with the update. So we have matching roof with also the wall swatches as well. So I definitely wanted to make use of that insane view that comes from this area. So we did a modern extension that will house a dining room. And once you get into tab mode or live mode, it's honestly breathtaking that you can see that scenery from there. I also wanted to do a wraparound veranda as well. That was something very prevalent in Cape Cod inspired houses, and also just added a nice bit of element to this build so it's not just two boxes, alongside each other. Also wanted to bring in that Cape Cod vibe with those really clean white pillars. So traced the house with those, and it was such a nice contrast to this dark wood siding that we go for, which I believe is from Get Famous, but I could be wrong. It seems like a strange pack for wood siding to come in, but I'm pretty sure it was that expansion pack. You can just see here, I'm adding those clean get together posts that came with the game. So just to trace the building and make it look very neat. But I really enjoyed building this. And as I mentioned, it was nice for me to gravitate towards things that I wouldn't normally have used in the game before, and definitely got some inspiration for future builds as well. You can see here I'm just adding that glass pane back again, and then bringing in some spandrels. We used a lot of cats and dogs for this speed build alongside horse ranch. That really came in handy for those earthy brown tones. And one thing you'll notice in this speed build is that while it's an autumnal inspired build, I wanted to go for something that was a bit softer and less bright and super like Halloween-esque. Something I don't really gravitate towards in my game is using very bright colors that come with the catalog, but I think this was a real nice complement between bringing in colors I don't usually use, but also bringing in the same kind of soft aesthetic that I tend to have run through with my builds. Just creating a top floor balcony here as well. This is where I end up putting a telescope on. So it's such a nice area for your Sims to stargaze, and especially in the evening, the light in this world is stunning. And I wanted a real mix of kind of a shabby chic aesthetic, but also it's very eclectic. It's mixed with some modern furniture and some traditional furniture, lots of leather and different textures. And yeah, I just thought it was a nice mix of aesthetics for this build. And for the foundation especially, I kind of got inspiration from that soft brown tone that came with the horse ranch foundation. So thanks for that. It's really proved a source of inspiration for the interiors. Just working on the front part of this build here, and I've elevated it as well so we can add in a tiny staircase. And instead of doing a pure white contrasting window, I went for these swatches from the base game. It's a white frame with this light browny kind of cream thread between. And the great thing about base game windows is that there's a lot of size variety. So I managed to use small, double, also double height ones, which really came in handy in the front part of the build and the back part to stream in a lot of natural light. There were some weird discrepancies with the swatches though, where some of the beige wood tone was actually yellow, so I couldn't use every single window type, but what can you do with The Sims, hey? Managed to find a relatively good matching front door, and then used some awnings from Horse Ranch, I believe, that matched with the roof tiles that we used. I ended up implementing the tool mod there just so I could size it down without it glitching. Working a little bit on the side veranda here. I think it's such a special moment to have that on a side of build. It's a lot of outdoor living, I guess, in America, and Cape Cod, especially. I guess you've got the beach on your doorstep, so it makes sense to have that indoor outdoor lifestyle. And just wrapping some windows around the rest of the build. Wanted to create a little breakfast nook in this room where we've added the double height windows. So once we get into furnishing, you'll see the lovely light that streams through those windows. And then here I was kind of freeballing where to put the windows since I hadn't done a layout or anything. Added the all important flag. Saw many of those, well, American flags, I guess, but on my inspiration hunt. And also, this is where I start working on the front detailing. So we add some flower boxes, some trellis, and then I really wanted to add a floral element. As you might have seen now, apparently my trademark is just adding flowers to everything on the front of my build. And I came across these, I got them wrong, Bougainvillea? I've probably butchered that name, and I'll probably laugh at myself in editing after butchering the word. But I love this shade that came with the pack. And I guess in summer, it's much brighter. But in the autumn season, that soft pinky shade, salmon page is so lovely with this build. So I just wrap it around the veranda as well, and then wrap it around the front. Placed it as naturally as I could. It's a bit tricky to work with this decal because there's no real vertical piece, so I had to just make do with what I had and size it down here and there. But I really love the effect this detail had. I also added some bramble vines just for a bit of extra detail as well. It's all about detail with my builds, as you probably know by now. And then, yeah, wrapped it round to the back as well. So it overlaps the breakfast nook windows. But I was very happy with how this came out in the end. Really blended into the surrounding area. Also managed to squeeze in a drain pipe down that wall that we're working on now. So making a start on landscaping. Pulled in some hydrangeas, one of my favorites, in a white and a kind of matching pink swatch. And then we've got a little bit of shrubbery just to make it a little bit more natural. And I carry through the same landscaping from the front to the back. It's not entirely matching with the world of Brindleton Bay, but for this build in particular, it's everything worked in harmony. I love reflecting the color scheme of the building with the landscaping. So hopefully you guys will agree that it looks very in tandem. Also, this bush I never actually used from Island Living, and I guess, yeah, with the autumn light as well, it came in that matching pink swatch, which is lovely. Here I'm just creating some different moments, I guess. So in the far part of the screen, you can see I've done a barbecue area. Well, I guess it's more of a fire pit area. We added in a lovely matching autumnal tree and one to the front as well. Just honestly, autumn is one of my favorite ever seasons. My birthday lands in autumn in late September. And in the game, you know, some people are so lucky to live in areas that have those gorgeous reddish trees. We get it in London a lot, actually, so it's quite nice to see the seasons change. Here I am just working on the landscaping around the front part, make it look as natural as possible. There's no real natural front entrance to this plot, which is unfortunate, so just kind of make believe that you walk to this lot rather than you drive up to it. I'm just peppering around the complementary flowers. Also found a debug bush in those similar tones just to fill out the landscaping a little bit more. I loved the texture that came with this landscaping. Looked a little bit wild, but also very maintained. Also, I was trawling through the catalog, came across this boat in debug, and I thought, what a great idea for, you know, people that stay here. They could go out on their own boat and moor it. So added it to this little wheeled cage, I guess. I was messing around with it so much with the tool mod, lifting it up and down. I think it really came together. I really wanted this type of house to be an outdoor house in the sense that there was lots of activities to do, which would make sense, I guess, for this area. Adding a little bit more detailing to the terrain paint, make it look like Sims have treaded around everywhere, and introduced a barbecue to this area. And you'll see a little bit later on we add a picnic table, so it makes sense having one there. Some bikes. I didn't bring enough for 4, which is what this house will probably cater to for Sims, probably to children, to adults, or, of any age group. But I just decided to add 2 bikes for now. You can always add more into the game should you want to download this. Also did a swing set as well. Just we had a nice gap to work with there, so I just added it for a bit of gameplay element. Use now my all-time favorite miniature plants that you can customize. Always come in handy now for different types of interiors, or as exteriors, as you can see. Also did a wind chime, thought it'd be nice for gameplay. Hearing that in the Brindleton Bay breeze. And here's that picnic table with a picnic basket. That was quite sweet. So you've got like informal and formal dining. I was originally going to put that bench in front of the glass pot, but I didn't want to interrupt the view, so I ended up shifting it over to where the kitchen windows are. It felt a lot more at home there in that area. Adding the telescope. Sims should be fine. I will definitely play a test this, but they should be fine to look through that. And also adding some outdoor lighting. I wanted this not to be too overlit, so hence why I go into the night mode. Might be a bit tricky for you guys to see on the screen, but yeah, I like doing this when I'm adding lighting, just to make sure I'm not overdoing anything. But it's important that, I did it in areas that made sense so the Sims could navigate around this lot. And I think we add just a couple more at the front and then a little bit more to the side. So lovely atmosphere added by adding these outdoor lights. Back into day mode, into the interiors. Now, I prepped the wallpapers on the flooring. I was struggling a lot actually with the interior color scheme, and I ended up landing on this really deep, rich navy shade with the dark wood flooring that has a slight nuance of brown in the colors. So I wanted to reflect that in all the kind of pieces that we include for the interiors. Pulled this sofa, which I never use, and I think that's from Cottage Living, but I could be wrong. I mixed it with these horse ranch leather armchairs. So it was a real mix of, rustic, bit cottagecore, I guess, in a way, but still a little bit of contemporary, you'll see when I pull in the rug. And also pulled out these side tables. Never use these side tables, but I think it was so nice, the complementary blue with the brown and the cream. And once I got that down, it really all came together quite easily. Here I'm just bringing in the touches of pink as a contrast. And then adding some of the fireplace furniture. I love that mossy texture on those those timbers, just to add to the fireplace. Added a lot of realism. I was toying with the idea of adding that leather bench as the coffee table, but I ended up doing it behind the sofa and then added this kind of shabby chic looking coffee table instead. This is where I had a lot of fun just picking out some very autumnal looking things that I don't usually get the chance of adding in my builds. I was surprised actually by how much was in catalogue, so it came together very nicely. And then, yeah, just peppering the room with different details, really. I did it in a stereo, a faux chess table. Wish that item was usable, actually. Also, some all-important blankets and throws in that autumnal shade with a pumpkin. So there was definitely certain parts where I went a bit cliche, but I thought it worked quite nicely. Some games, some board games. Imagine really cozy nights in this cabin. If you're staying over and it's like blustery, stormy weather outside, that's how I imagined it. And there was lots of different autumnal looking items in the catalogue, which I was surprised about, that weren't overtly seasonal. So it was nice to play around and choose some things that I normally wouldn't go for. Speaking of, I never really would go for this brown shade in these curtains, so it was a nice concept to use something a little bit different. Skipping ahead just to add in the bookshelf, made sure to include that decoration box so you can dress the house if you want with lights. You could even stay here during winter, so it'd be a nice Christmas cottage to stay in. Little rocking chair for some reading. Also love that side table, never use it, and I love the complementary tones that work with the room. Very rustic looking wooden lamp. I think that's from one of the very early packs that we got. So, and I thought that lighthouse lamp was so sweet. Just nestled a little unread book on the side, which I always kind of like doing for any Sims that love reading. Looks very realistic. And then I had a corner free to do something special. So I ended up going for a game area. We used, I think it's Don't Wake the Llama. I could be wrong. But I ended up doing a little games table with 4 chairs. That'd be really sweet for family interactions or friends. But yeah, I really enjoyed adding these wood elements in. And it's quite nice to do something where there was, usable space and it wasn't just for decoration. I love the light that's streaming through, as you can see. Such nice lighting in Brindleton Bay, I find. Also used these chairs from Jungle Adventure. Never used those chairs, and I thought they were so nice. It's very complimentary to the interior. And there was that mix of, craftsman with modern. It's that very, small, subtle dining room area, but just enough to add some detail. I thought, the view speaks for itself more than anything. Don't need too much furniture in this room, considering it's see-through. And it adds some autumnal details to this. Lovely bits of foliage, and also we have a matching candle, to that area. So nice. You could dress this up for Christmas, as I mentioned earlier. Into the kitchen. Wanted something fairly traditional, so I went for a gingham wallpaper. Again, something I don't normally gravitate to. I was toying with having a very pristine, clean white kitchen, and I did try it, but it looked too out of place with the rest of the interior, so I think that's for a different kind of build. I ended up splitting up the stove from the oven, and the kitchen we go for is a mix of cottage living with one of the base game cabinets, because I didn't really enjoy the cabinetry from Cottage Living. It's got that weird net curtain on the front for everyone, and it's just too much of a repeated texture, unfortunately. But these pretty much match the brown swatch that we've got going, so worked out in the end. Here's where I just swap out that side cabinet for a full one, so Sims should be able to use either of those two for cooking. Also brought out the marshmallow tray, so that'd be nice. Hot chocolate made sense. And just making the stove area apparent, bringing in some extra details, so some utensils. I think we find a oven dish, which is a nice sweet touch, casserole dish. And then one of the plants, my all-time favorite plants now, apparently. And then just change up the plant pot, I think, from memory. Yeah, we pull out this one specifically and then choose the plant itself. Very nice. I love as well that farmer's sink that came with Cottage Living. Looks all integrated. And I used this nook that was behind the stairs to house the fridge, since it was kind of a pokey kitchen in the end. Didn't forget a bin, very proud of myself. And then here's the lovely breakfast nook. I couldn't fit in 4 chairs, which was unfortunate, but it was quite nice to have this little moment away from the more formal dining area. And I thought 2 chairs was just enough. We mirrored the same chairs that we used in the dining room, but in a darker wood swatch. And it's really nice of you. Imagine Sims sitting here with their morning coffee after they wake up. And I really wanted to use that fruit and veg decal. This one here. I thought those colours were very autumnal, worked with the theme that we were going for. Just added a little picture on the wall for a bit of detail. Pulled in a rug as well. I did want to mess around with different kind of patterns for the rugs. So we'd had more of a traditional one in the kitchen, and then we've got more of a modern one in the living room. So it's bringing in a bit of personality using textures and different nuanced shades more than anything. And I chose this ceiling light in a burgundy, which is something I've not tried before, and I love that shade. I love the wear and tear on it. Rather weirdly, we've done the front entrance a little later on, but because I wanted to complete this entire upstairs and downstairs area in one go, so it had a nice flow to it. So we added an umbrella stand for the all-important crazy weather that is in Brindleton Bay, and a nice woven rug in this area. All felt very like earthy. I need to make use of the Grange mudroom kit here, so we ended up pulling in one of the sides tables, this one here with the storage. I ended up doing it in a black. I do love this pack. I just wish there was a bit more natural wooden tones, I guess, but I understand the limitations for kits like this, so I won't complain too much because they're such gorgeous pieces anyway. But I did make use of a lot of the items here, so the little pegs with the clothing items on. I also nestled above the frames, used the hydrangeas, which is lovely. I imagine maybe that one of the Sims that was staying here, they picked the hydrangeas and they added them to the vase from the outside. And yeah, just some things to make it look a little bit more lived in. Even though it's a holiday house, and I understand mostly it would be pretty sparse in a real life scenario, I just wanted to make it look lived in for this scenario. Remember to add in one of my favourite little stools. I wish we had side tables that were that small, that looked that rustic as well. Upstairs, finally. So we had a nice little space to work with here, and I was wondering whether to do a miniature office, but that wasn't really appropriate, I guess, for a holiday rental. So what I ended up doing is a little TV snug area that also had some gaming. So it's kind of very retro, the gaming. We've got the console that came with one of those timed events, and I loved finding that little detail to the left. You just saw it in the last frame, which was the Sims seasons, acting as if it was like a real life game to play. So I thought really kind of nice nod to it being an autumnal style build. Nice, cozy looking sofa. I actually really enjoy using that in a lot of my builds. It's one of the few sofas that look really plush. And a little buffet, and also this rug as well. Love this little table. I try and use it as much as possible because I think the tones in it are so lovely. And it was a perfect place to use it in that little corner with some hydrangeas on top. Just realised now that we've doubled up on the hydrangeas, but I think it's fine because we do have some white and some pink ones in the garden itself, so please forgive me for repeating textures. But yeah, not much to work with in this area, considering it's just, a way through for the Sims. Struggled a lot actually finding some wall lights. Going through a few variations, I was thinking maybe we could go for this lantern style, looks a bit more traditional. I also pulled out one that looked a touch more modern, which didn't work in the end. This one here. And then I finally settled on this nice sconce. I ended up sizing it down though. I do often find the lights are sometimes hilariously big in the game. And I think that added a nice glow to all the rooms, so I ended up peppering that little sconce around the living area as well. And just putting it at the back door. Just for a nice glow. I was also toying with different wallpapers for this area, but I ended up just going classic with some cream and dark brown wood paneling. Into the bathroom. I struggled a lot with the color scheme for this. I was going with crazy tiles, and then I ended up just paring everything back and going for a decorative shower caddy instead. So kind of the jumping off point was the tones of that. Ended up just using a white loo and also came across this nice sink basin from For Rent, I think, and did that with a blue swatch. So it felt a little bit coastal as well as mixing with the browns since we'd used the navy and the brown downstairs. Nice complementary colours. This is where I was talking about not always using overly bright shades for an autumnal build. It's not my style, so hopefully you agree it kind of worked out in the end. Just adding a bit of detail, necessary detail to the bathroom, including a little window dressing so you're not flashing. Well, I guess you wouldn't really have any onlookers, but you're not flashing anyone where you're getting out of the shower. I did initially think I could fit in a bathtub with a shower overhead, but didn't really like anything, and also kind of cut into the window, so I didn't want that to be glitching in the end, so I ended up just going for a shower instead. Also wanted a hanging plant as well in this area for a bit of greenery, bit of life, so I ended up shuffling everything over and centering the basin again. That actually does change later on in the video because I'm crazy with all my detail that I add. It's a bit excessive sometimes. Into the children's bedroom, I guess you could say. It's a bunk bed, so I guess adults could also stay in this room, but I really wanted it to create it as a children's room, and it's not often I really create kids' rooms, and it was quite a nice discovery for me in the catalog, finding all these items for kids. And like I said, it was quite good to work with different color schemes as well. So we've gone for this brown and green theme with touches and pops of red. I took inspiration from the landscaping outside, really, with those gorgeous maroon red trees. So pulled in this really lovely wallpaper from Enchanted by Nature. Initially was going to go for this swatch, but I ended up switching it for one with the red in it, which is coming now. And I think it really came together. It's not often I get to create rooms that are this whimsical, I guess. So just added a lovely desk. I love all the detailing to this. Unsure what this came with. Oh, For Rent, I think. Oh no, Living Together. Living Together? Is that the right word? I don't know. This is where I got sidetracked because I was pulling in tents. I was like, maybe we could do a cute little outdoor sleeping bag situation, but we didn't end up going for it in the end. There wasn't enough room. But I did pull in that little object. I believe kids can use it and they collect all their findings from nature, like petals, and they can press it in that little book. So that was a nice gameplay element. Really cute little acorn nightlight. And then, yeah, I was just having a right of a time looking through the catalogue for all the kids' objects. Ended up pulling in a toy box. This is one of my favourites, actually. So it's quite traditional, like a trunk. Just had to squeeze things over. Look at the light though streaming through the window. So lovely. I'll never get over the lighting engine in The Sims. And just, oh yeah, we have a marble item. So kids can collect marbles. I also remembered to add a marble ring, which I probably not the correct terminology, but I've added it downstairs next to the swings. So kids should be able to play as well outside. Again, getting distracted, as you can see. And then I found this really cute hamper full of toys and throws and things like that. So maybe it's a little bit young for children, but it's a nice bit of decoration all the same. And added a little desk lamp in this area. I went for my tried and true, which is that hinged one. We get to it soon. Not this one here from the base game. And a lovely yellow swatch. But it's quite a tight space to work with. I didn't want to add too much to this area. Just enough to add a bit of personality. We added in some jazzy window dressings, and I chose this rug, which has some mountaintops. It's all very nature-based. But I really enjoyed that room in the end. Something I don't usually go for, but it's a nice challenge this speed build, doing something a bit different. Just adding some final lighting to this area, making sure everything looked okay before I moved on to the main bedroom. Now, it's quite a decent size to work with, and we had one of those little alcoves, so I ended up adding in an inbuilt wardrobe. Initially pulled in this really rich reddy swatch, but we ended up darkening this down because I was playing around a lot with the colour swatches for this room. It really wasn't settled on what to go for, whether to go for a lighter scheme or a deeper scheme, so I did stick to this wallpaper but in a different swatch. I was checking downstairs whether we'd use that blue or not, and we had, so I ended up going for this deeper, darker brown. It's kind of got a bit of aubergine in it in a way, but I loved how rich the colour scheme looked like, so... And then the bed was a jumping off point really from everything. And as you can see there, I was placing it on that wall and did not enjoy it in the end because I couldn't fit inside tables. And I didn't really like the idea of like the door just opening out onto the bed. So I shifted it over to the other wall. And as you can see here, I'm just darkening down the wardrobe. I think the red was jumping out a bit too much for the colour scheme that we had going on. So I very much enjoyed it in that dark brown tone. And also being a bit crazy here and looking through the windows as if I was a sim to figure out which would be the best view for waking up in the morning, hence why the bed is now on this wall. But just added some side tables and also a little bench at the end of the beds, which I always like to do with a bigger bedroom. A full-length mirror from the base game in a dark brown tone. Really like how rich this room looked. And in this corner, I ended up adding a writing desk. I was toying the idea of adding a laptop, but I figured since it's a holiday home, it's quite nice for Sim to get away from using technology. So I kept it just as a desk itself, now with a little lamp and a bit of decoration. I was initially going to use this horse ranch chair, so I love that aubergine shade that worked with the wallpaper, but I ended up going for a smaller kind of vanity looking chair using that similar sage minty tone that we use for the bedspread. It's always something I like to do is like carry a colour scheme through one side of the room to another. Just choosing a desk lamp here. We ended up toning that into a rose gold later on. And then choosing some bedside table lights. Was initially thinking of using the bowling stuff and then also toying with this seasons lamp. But I ended up landing on this one here, and I really like it. It's a lamp I never really used all too often. We used it in this nice, cool, complementary shade with a dark wood base, and so it would look really nice in this room. There I am just changing the lamp to a rose gold, and then adding my favourite plant pot, apparently, which we add with one of those lovely lilies. Just toning that to the room to match the colour scheme. And then I think we move on to adding a rug to this area. I ended up just pulling this one straight from the catalogue, which I was surprised about because it did really work in this area. So it was quite nice. I think it's from Strangerville. And then I ended up just finishing things off with some curtains and a ceiling light. But I'm going to wrap things up now. Thank you so much for watching. If you do like this video, please give it a like and subscribe. I'll make sure to upload this build to the gallery under Curio Sims so you can download it should you so wish. I'm going to be pre-recording content now for the next couple of weeks while I'm going to be in Brazil, where I'm celebrating my birthday. So if you do end up leaving a lovely comment and I don't get back to you, I do apologise, and I will definitely ensure to reply once I'm back. But once again, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the final tour, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye. Thank you.